So the project originated from a realization from the UN and the World Bank that there are really two communities who never speak to each other. There are the security people who do security intervention, security planning, and then there's the development community. So this link between public finance and security is not really well articulated. So questions like, is the security sector affordable? Is it efficient? Is it effective? Remain unanswered. And that's absolutely critical in a very conflicting situation. So as a result of that realization, and given our experience, we put together a methodology to analyze public expenditures in security, justice, looking at defense, looking at police, looking at courts. And the idea is to root these strategies in numbers. We come up with objective data as much as we can, and regardless of what strategies they choose, we try to embed that really in the economic context of the country. And that's what we hope to achieve, to make these sectors realistic, make them more effective, and ultimately closer to citizens to deliver what they can.
Mr. Parlier, anything to add?
Yes, on the UN side, we bring our expertise in conflict analysis, security sector reform, while the bank brings its expertise in public financial management and public expenditure policy, budgeting, economic analysis, forecasting. So this project is a flagship project of our strategic partnership in crisis-affected situations. We were lucky to have the visit of President Jim Kim of the World Bank and of the Undersecretary General for Peacekeeping Operations, Mr. Lacroix. So it's a showcase of the partnership, and there's a very strong will from the leaders of the UN and the World Bank for the two organizations to work together more closely in the service of the people of the world.
So the World Health Organization, our mandate is to ensure that the right to health of any citizen around the world is implemented. Our Director General has shaped the organization, or is shaping the organization in a way that is ensuring that this global commitment is actually implemented globally, which means including in the most fragile and vulnerable context. And those countries, most fragile, most vulnerable, are those countries affected by conflicts. If you look at the caseload of the most worrying diseases that is our world is facing, if you look at the most cases where the objectives that we globally set for ourselves as a global community towards health outcomes, where they are the lowest, it's all in countries affected by conflicts. Health in those conditions is a premise for any global and national citizen to basically live through a fruitful life. If you don't have this fruitful life, it's a cause of frustration, it's a cause of conflict, it's a cause of war. And Secretary General Guterres has rightly so organized the UN system in a way that is promoting the 17 SDGs, including SDG 3 on health and SDG 16 on peaceful societies, and has called on the whole UN system to support the implementation of a sustaining peace, as the member states have been calling it, into the two Security Council and General Assembly resolution of 2016. In these twin goals, health has a central part to play. If you don't have health, you don't have anything. If you don't have anything, you are frustrated, and this vicious circle is coming through. If you look at a conflict circle, there are different moments in a time of a conflict. Before the conflict, when we are very vulnerable, and you can do activities to prevent it. Within the conflict, one of the important parts that you have is offering some mediation opportunities to create some dialogue towards something more peaceful. And when you have a peace agreement, you have implementation duty that it is a success. In all of those areas, the health sector, the health of the population at large, is a pathway for peace.
Together First is a response to the crisis in global governance and the lack of faith that people have in our global institutions. It's about widening the conversation and allowing the public and the civil society to have a say in the way our global system operates.
We we are a movement of more than 100 global citizens with different expertises from all over the world, that we are basically aiming to understand the needs of the citizens in order to build a global governance project or a global governance situations, environment that can tackle the global challenges.
I guess it's based on the philosophy that you can't really have legitimate global governance and global decision making when you're leaving the global public out of the conversations. So right now we're seeing decisions monopolized by member states at the UN, and we have an action today called the People's Veto, which is saying, well, member states have a veto. We think that people should have a veto and should have a say too. So we want people to join the conversation and be part of that, the vision for the future of global decision making.
It is very easy to explain that we need a world parliament. Why? Any village, any city, any nation, any state has a parliament. The earth must have a parliament. It's about time to have it. I mean, the United Nations has done an excellent work with the instruments it has according to the Charter of 1945, but that charter today is obsolete. We need a global parliament with two chambers, nation-state chambers that could be the result of the UN transformation, according with a United Nations Charter review, and on the other hand, a chamber for people. Citizens of the world must organize a future citizen world parliament with universities involved. We think in our center that young students may start the process of electoral global election of parliamentarians, citizen parliamentarians for the future Citizen World Parliament. So there are two proposals in our center of Centro Mexicano de Responsabilidad Global. First, UN Charter Review Conference to transform the United Nations into a World Parliament. The other route is Citizens World Parliament through a electoral vote with students in the various regions of the world. That way we may push as citizens of the world to take the right decision at the United Nations, to put it into place, to have the possibility to legislate and to create legislative authority in the world.
So I work for the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, was created in 2007, and the goal of our project is to explain why the Treaty of Prohibitions of Nuclear Weapons are really important, as it was created and adopted last year at the UN by 122 countries. So it's a treaty we prohibited all of kind of nuclear weapons, and it's a global prohibition as until now it doesn't exist. And this treaty we are trying to force probably next year at the end of 2019, as there is a lot of countries who sign and ratify, and we just need now less than 30 ratifications, and we will be, as I said, this treaty will be in trying to force, and so the nuclear weapons will be out of law.
We are the CTPTO youth group. Although the name looks a bit funny, CTPTO, yet this is a very serious issue. This is the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, which means that it bans nuclear tests all over the world, in the surface, underground, in the atmosphere, and underwater. I'm sure that many of you will ask, okay, but why is this relevant for us? Because nowadays there are not many nuclear tests. Actually, this is very relevant for each of us, and there are 4 reasons why this is so relevant. The first is the health risk that nuclear tests have. The radioactivity released from every nuclear weapon dispersed into the atmosphere and then it's deposited in the Earth's soil. It's the environmental risk. The nuclear tests basically contaminate entire areas of the world. The third reason is also related to the two first ones. So we said health risk and we said environmental risk. But do these recognize borders? I think that no. They do not recognize borders. But what does this mean? This means that this is a global issue. This is not a national issue. This is an issue that affects every one of us regardless the country where we come from. And which brings us to the fourth reason why this is relevant. Although many people nowadays believe that nuclear weapon issues or nuclear test issues have been solved, actually that's not true. Nuclear test issues is an ongoing issue and we should act for that. It took only one nuclear test from North Korea to create a panic all over the world. So I think we should act today. We are all responsible to take action on this.
First, I had to precise that it's an initiative from the civil society. We proposed a global pact for the environment with a network of 100 of jurists from all over the world, from France, but also from Brazil, from Canada, from China, from a lot of countries in Asia, in Africa. And we proposed, in short, to consolidate and codify all the main principle of environmental law: the right to a sound environment, the right to access to information, or the duty to prevention, the duty to repair the damage caused to the environment. You can find all these principles for the moment in a single declaration, the famous Declaration of Rio. But this text has no legal value, so time has come to bring together all these principles and to put them in a real treaty, an international treaty with legal value. It is our proposal. The thing is that now states have voted a resolution in last May 2018, a resolution of the Assembly General of United Nations, and this resolution opened a negotiation on the Global Pact. So it's very interesting. Now we have the issue on the table of the United Nations, and now we hope that civil society is going to make a pressure on states to have the most ambitious text.
Okay, so Youth Climate Leaders is a brand new startup and it originates with Cassia, the founder, and I'm a co-founder. Basically, she had an idea when a lot of people were asking her about how to find jobs on climate change. So she decided, okay, why not create something to help those young people, to help them to find their way to become climate leaders. So I joined her on that idea and we're developing the Youth Climate Leaders. Our main goal is to help young people to find jobs on climate change, environment, and the field of sustainability. Basically, we provide them a learning journey around the world in a way that they can learn about climate change in theory and practice. So we did our pilot this year, 10 days in Paris and a month in Kenya. They spent 10 days here in Paris visiting organizations, understand the international level of climate change issues, and we went to Kenya after, where they work on hands-on projects in local communities, understanding in practice what climate change is in local communities in a sense of adaptation and mitigation projects. Once they go to our learning project, they are part of YCL Network. Being part of YCL Network, they are able to do field placements around the world. So we already got some 4 young people in different countries working with organizations that's our partner, helping them to develop enough skills. So we know once they go to the learning journey and volunteer on climate change issues, they are more than ready to start working as a climate leaders all over the world. We are worldwide. We got already applications from 95 countries in our first cohort, and we are willing to receive much more applications next year as soon as we start our tracks. We are going to Germany and India in one track, and Brazil in Amazonia in the second track at the end of the year. So basically that's what YCL is.
My project is called Bukavu Green Chapel. It is an agent solution to 3 major problems. Every year my country loses 100,000 hectares of heat forest so that households can have access to cooking energy, as 70% of the population has no access to electricity. The second major problem we are trying to address is that families in my country are very, very poor. To get rid of their waste, they throw them directly on the street, where they cause malaria and diarrhea, which are the two leading causes to infant and maternal mortality. The third problem we are trying to solve is that every day a family spends 30% of his income to access cooking energy, which is too expensive comparing to other regions in the world. As a consequence, the family has no money left to invest in the education and the health care of the children. And to solve these three major problems, I just started the Bukavu Green Charcoal, which consists of collecting waste that is produced by households, schools, and market, and turn it into clean and cheap cooking charcoal.
Yes, so basically the project on the territorial approach to SDGs originated for two main reasons. First, because we realized that some of the previous Millennium Development Goals were not fully achieved, also because there was a lack of engagement with the local stakeholder, with the local community, and in terms of measurement, the focus of the measurement of the progress was very much at the national level, while by measuring progress only at the national level, some pockets of poverty that can be masked, and some territorial disparity cannot be fully captured. And at the same time, there was a strong movement from cities and from regions towards the SDGs, and we saw that although the SDGs were not designed only for cities, for regions, but mainly for national government, there is a strong interest from cities and regions. For this reason, we launched this program. The program was launched in New York at the Level Political Forum in July this year, and the project basically has three main goals. The first one is to help cities and regions measuring the SDGs. So basically we're going to develop a localized indicator framework that can support cities and regions measuring progress. The second component is about learning. So basically what we want to do is to help cities and regions in using the SDGs to improve their local development policies, and at the same time use the SDGs to improve the dialogue and the coordination with the various levels of government, so with the city level, the regional level, and the national level. And the third component is about sharing. We are developing this component in two main ways. The first way is through peer-to-peer learning. So every time we go to one pilot, every time we bring a representative of other pilots. For example, we went to the city of Kitakyushu in Japan and we had a representative of Denmark. Now we are going to Bonn in a few days and we are going to have the city of Kitakyushu coming with us. And we see that this peer-to-peer learning is a very strong tool to provide knowledge exchange between the pilots. And finally, we are also going to organize some big events at the OECD. We are going to organize 3 big events where we will share the preliminary result, discuss them with the stakeholders, with the other international organizations, and so on. At the end, we are going to have a full-fledged OECD report, a synthesis report, plus one specific report for each pilot where we are going to advise them on how to use the SDGs to improve their policy.
So my name is Elsa De Silva and I'm from Mumbai, India. I'm a member of the Global Diplomacy Lab, and the Global Diplomacy Lab is an initiative of the German Federal Foreign Office and its private partner private partners who are the BMW Foundation, the Bosch Foundation, Mercator Foundation, and the GIZ, Global Leadership Academy. And it was started 5 years ago with a network of individuals from around the world, from government, diplomats, private sector, civil society organizations, academia and media. And what we do is the members work on challenges throughout the year, and through these challenges we offer in a way consultancy on policy matters that affect all of us, but using our diverse skill sets and expertise to think through these problems with a new lens and fresh perspective and offer ready-to-act solutions. So for example, this year, the challenge that we are working on as a network is addressing urban youth violence, and our partners on the ground are the Mayor of Chicago's office and the Obama Foundation. Next week, I will be in Chicago with some of my colleagues from the network, where we will be working practically on solutions that address this topic. Increasingly in today's world, civil society will play a big role and does play a big role in holding governments accountable, but also it's civil society that has to come up with solutions, because it is the world that matters to us, and at a people-to-people level we need to create networks and find ways to work on peaceful solutions.
So first of all, maybe I will explain about Mission Publique. Mission Publique works to organize citizens' debate at a global scale in order to put in discussion with the citizens the main stakes of humanity. So, for example, the rationale behind that is that a lot of decisions are taken at a global level, and what are the entries for the citizens, how to have an overview about what the citizens think or fear or want for the next decades. And the idea is really to recreate a link between the decision making process and the citizens' view. The idea is not to have two parallel like this, but to make connection. And we think that there is also a democracy stake. If we look at the world at the moment, the democracy, they are in sometimes a bit in a hard position, let's say, and we believe that we need to recreate the link with the citizens. And also citizens are completely able to work on complex topics as soon as you provide adapt method. So we were thinking about that for many years, and we decided to organize this kind of debate. And so a debate is, for example, for one day, the citizens from 9 to 5 p.m. they will work together in small groups. We provide information before in order to put everyone at the same level of information, and our target is the lay citizens. What we are interested in is having a lay citizen's point of view, and to complete the expert one. We do not say that the expert point of view is not interesting. What we need is to combine this. So, and we try to work at the global scale. Like, for example, we worked on the climate issues for the COP21, and we ran a debate in 76 countries with 10,000 citizens. And it was very interesting because you can see that from Burundi to Nepal to Fiji to Arizona, you had some trends. The citizens, they were sharing views, independently to the culture, and it was very interesting because they are ready to make changement in their own life as soon as you create. And what is also interesting is this kind of projects, like the deliberation process we are providing, allows everyone to express in a way that is like enlightened views because of the protocol that allows everyone to explain his views, and we are completely out of the binary point of view you will have with a poll, like do you agree, yes or not? And we think that democracy is not yes or not, it's something that we have to build. The people, they need to understand the stakes, the context, the challenges, and as soon as you explain this and you put them in a way where they can discuss between fellows, then you can see that they are completely ready to have this kind of discussion, and they can provide very important material for policymakers.
Across the Western world, we face a common challenge, which is election meddling. Foreign powers, malign powers interfering in our election processes, spreading disinformation, and trying to generally sow disunity and discord in those election processes. So we formed a transatlantic commission on election integrity, which brings together figures from across parties, but also from the political world on both sides of the Atlantic, and combines that with business leaders, tech leaders, and media leaders. And the idea being that we close some of the gaps that exist in our response to election interference, in particular the gap across the Atlantic, where we're not currently talking to each other, the gap that exists between political parties, because especially in the United States, for example, this issue has become highly partisan, but also that crosses the gap between the tech world and the political world, because the two speak very different languages and we want to try and make them understand each other better.
Alors ce projet est né suite donc la France a présidé en fait le partenariat pour le gouvernement ouvert, et en 2016 a organisé le sommet international PGO, et donc lors de ce sommet a pris notamment dans un de ses engagements d'appuyer au niveau extérieur les pays d'Afrique francophone dans l'adhésion et la mise en œuvre de ce partenariat gouvernement ouvert. Donc suite à cette prise de décision politique, il y a eu des financements qui ont été attribués à l'AFD, qui est le bailleur et financeur, pour mettre en œuvre ce type de projet. Ils sont passés par CFI et Expertise France, qui sont les deux opérateurs français de coopération. Et donc on a décidé, via ce projet, d'appuyer les 3 pays qui sont aujourd'hui adhérents au partenariat du gouvernement ouvert, et donc de les renforcer, de les appuyer, de les accompagner dans la mise en œuvre de leur engagement et de renforcer leurs compétences sur ces thématiques-là.
Monsieur Tanguin, à quel titre êtes-vous bénéficiaire du projet et de quelle façon ça se concrétise pour vous?
Alors, dans le cadre de la Côte d'Ivoire, il y a le gouvernement et la société civile qui, dans un esprit de co-création, à travers ce projet, a pu, disons, réaliser un ensemble d'actions qui permet de préparer la mise en œuvre du plan d'action de la Côte d'Ivoire. Et dans ce cadre, le projet nous a permis de consulter les citoyens au niveau local, de faire une consultation en ligne, de permettre à un certain nombre de citoyens de dire quelles sont leurs priorités dans le cadre des engagements qui devront être pris par le gouvernement dans le cadre du plan d'action de la Côte d'Ivoire. Et ce projet nous a permis d'élaborer notre plan d'action 2018-2020 qui aujourd'hui est en train d'être validé par le gouvernement de Côte d'Ivoire et qui va aussi, à travers ce projet, nous permettre d'identifier les indicateurs de suivi et évaluation et qui permettront aux citoyens de faire un meilleur suivi des engagements pris par le gouvernement.
The project originally is Colombian, based in Bogota, but it's currently spread around Colombia in almost every region of Colombia. The origin of the project is to create a unique pedagogical method that implements different materials and skills to promote mediation, discernment, mediation, self-care and care to other people, justice, restorative justice, forgiveness and reconciliation. So the idea is to organize workshops with groups of around 15 to 21 persons and to work around social, emotional issues that they can have around, notably we can discuss about different types of topics, and we can talk about personal case that occurred, for example, a personal experience of violence. And so we work currently in Colombia and in 20 other countries in the world with different kinds of population, for example with groups of victims of a conflict, with different actors of conflict, for example with ex-combatants, with the youth and with social leaders.
International Gender Champions was created in Geneva in 2015 with 3 partners. The Director General of the United Nations in Geneva, the U.S. Ambassador at the time, and its civil society partner whose idea it was, Women at the Table. And International Gender Champions, which at the time was just called Geneva Gender Champions, brought together male and female leaders, each of whom is head of their organization, from civil society to member states to international organizations, to break down gender barriers. And our first idea was that there would be no more all-male panels. And then swiftly decided there would be no more all-female panels. So no more men speaking about technology and security only, and no more women talking about health and children and gender equality only. We also understood relatively quickly that we needed to do more than just a panel pledge, so we asked each champion to make 2 personal, accountable commitments that they would accomplish within a year, smart commitments. So, for example, one of our first champions, Antonio Guterres, who was High Commissioner of Refugees at the time, made a commitment that when he went on mission, he would always meet with a women's rights group, civil society women. This became a transformative policy for him, which he continues to this day as Secretary General of the United Nations and also a member of the network, because the network has expanded from Geneva to New York, to Vienna, to Nairobi, and now, just as of this week, here at the Paris Peace Forum in The Hague. So we work together, we're geographically based, and the idea is that without gender equality, the democratic project is doomed to fail. In order for democracy to be relevant, to be resilient for the 21st century, we need to have gender equality, and half of the population needs to be represented. And this is a good way for us to then go on from there with 52% of the population to be inclusive to all of the population.
Peace Village is Wahid Foundation initiation to empowering particularly women group in local area. Now we have 9 villages in Java island. Our aim is how women in local area more resilient of intolerant and radicalism cases at respective area. We use economic approach for them through save and loan, and we have been conducting some trainings for them about peaceful, about peace, about tolerance, and etc. Now we have around 2,000 member women under this program.
A lot of our larger companies, me coming from Facebook, but also YouTube, Twitter, and Microsoft, had been having lots of conversations on the topic of terrorism for many years. But these were usually ad hoc. They would come up in the face of a crisis. We have different relationships with different governments, and terrorism looks very different in different parts of the world. So GIFCT, the Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism, was made so that we put a more official structure around our efforts and also open the door to other technologies and platforms. The better that one platform gets at countering terrorism, it doesn't mean it just goes away. It means it spreads to other platforms. And terrorist activities, violent extremism, looks different in different parts of the world. Different platforms are operationalized, and even our own platforms are used in different ways. So what GIFCT allows us to do is work on 3 different pillars. One is where can we share technology? One is where can we share knowledge and bring other sectors to the table to talk with us about this? And the other is where can we get better targeted academic expertise? So on shared technology, right now we're looking at when we have known official violent extremist propaganda, how can we share that in a safe way between companies? We've learned a lot from NECMEC and child exploitation work, where we have a shared database of hashes. We have nearly 100,000 unique pieces of content in that. And we have about 13 different companies that share that. And each company is meant to operationalize that to however works best for their platform. All of our platforms work a little differently. All of us might have a slightly different perspective on terrorism and definitions. And so it's up to the platform. We're not here to police the internet. We're here to share best practices. around sharing knowledge, we've been going strategically to different parts of the world and carrying out workshops in collaboration with an NGO called Tech Against Terrorism that was developed out of a UN Counterterrorism Executive Directorate mandate. And those workshops are meant to be a real live space to bring different platforms to the table with relevant policymakers and relevant experts and civil society, so that we're all talking about where we see threat, what are the perspectives we need to consider. Let's make sure we also don't abuse human rights while trying to counter terrorism. So we need that perspective to be constant. And we've carried those out in 9 different places in 8 different countries on 4 continents, and we will continue that in 2019. And on academic research, when you look at terrorist research, most of it looks at one platform in one country. And that's not really helpful when the threat is multi-platform and global. So we have 7 different research institutes in 6 countries that are looking at it more holistically and trying to evaluate where we think credible threat is heading. What does violent extremism look like? Are we looking at white supremacy content? Are we looking at Buddhist extremism? This looks very different globally, and we need to have that perspective as well.
This project is a project for the World Justice Project, that is an organization based in Washington, D.C., but we also have offices in Mexico where this project is being piloted for the first time. The main idea of this project is to combine data with effective documentary filmmaking to affect change, in particular to reduce the use of torture within criminal investigations. And why start in Mexico? Because we worked with the Mexican government to deploy a survey in all prisons of Mexico. 64,000 inmates were interviewed in a very complex and long questionnaire, and that gave us a very accurate photograph of what is happening in the criminal procedures in Mexico. And one of the most shocking data that we got from that survey was that 85% of the people that are detained in Mexico and then subjected to a criminal prosecution were tortured at some point between their arrest and before they were presented to a judge. And what is the meaning of this data is that police forces and authorities that participate in some way in criminal investigations in Mexico have no idea of how to conduct criminal investigations. And the result is that they take anyone and they torture them to force false confessions, to accuse someone else, and in general to have this very unreliable evidence to take to a judge. And this data is very powerful, but we know that it is not enough. So we are combining this data with effective documentary filmmaking, and we are using that to inform public opinion about this situation in Mexico. And why are we doing that? And to your question about how this project originated, in 2008, we released a documentary called Presunto Culpable, and it was so powerful in Mexico that through that documentary, or as a result of it, a constitutional amendment was approved. And because of it, now the whole design of how trials are conducted in Mexico completely transformed. So it is a very powerful advocacy tool to produce documentary that is based in evidence.
ProtectDefenders.eu simply tries to do what it says, what the name is, protect human rights defenders. The urges for it, I think, are clear. Human rights defenders worldwide are being repressed, threatened, attacked all over the world. And we see that, although we see in the last 20 years, that last 20 years, more and more people are identify themselves as human rights defenders. We also, and more human rights work is being done by human rights defenders. We also see that more and more people are attacked because of the work that they're doing. So the EU, together with with a consortium of human rights organizations, come together to form a consortium, and that consortium is ProtectDefenders.eu. It is a consortium of 12 human rights organizations that are implementing, as civil society, the EU Human Rights Defenders mechanism. This means that with the funds we receive from the EU, we try to support human rights defenders locally with the direct threats that they face. We can support them with material support, for example, providing legal costs for legal fees or medical fees if the human rights defenders are either asked before court or are being attacked and physically harmed. We provide grants for organizations whose funding has been cut off, and we have grants for the temporary relocation of human rights defenders if human rights defenders are under so much threat that they can't stay in the country where they are working. We also have another form of support that we give to human rights defenders and their organizations. We organize trainings to support human rights organizations to be better at advocacy, making security plans both on physical security, digital security, psychosocial well-being. And we have an advocacy and monitoring tool for the situation of human rights defenders. This means that we can go to countries and monitor the local situation. We can go to trials and be there when human rights defenders are being prosecuted, and notify the international community about that by newsletters, by reports, etc., etc.
Every day today we see persons disappearing or going missing, be it as a consequence of a conflict, a natural disaster, or today, which gives it a very strong scope, migration. And this is why we think it's an utmost priority to come up with a response that is improved for the sake of missing persons themselves, of course, but as well their families, which are left sometimes in limbo and suffering psychological distress. So the project aims basically at convening, gathering all stakeholders that are working on this issue. Many positive initiatives already exist, but we feel that there is a lack, that there is a need for coordination of all these initiatives, in a sense that a wide range of expertise are needed to define what are the best practices, and then to widespread their use, throughout the community. We aim to cover, all type of questions in terms of all types of questions in terms of the questions such as, in the case of a missing persons, how do you collect best the data about the missing persons? How do you support psychologically in the best way the families? How do you include the big data component, the digital component today into these searches, etc., etc. So in a nutshell, we aim at having all these partners coming together, agreeing on what's the best practices, defining them as a standard, technical standard, to move forward in order to improve the situation of the missing persons and their families.
Yeah, so we're introducing here at the Paris Peace Forum civilian harm mitigation as a global standard. What that means in practice is what type of measures governments, institutions, communities, militaries can put in place practically at their level to reduce the damages that are caused to civilians in military operations. So, and the urgency for that is obvious. We are in a moment in time where there are so many conflicts in the world, a number of areas where jihadist groups operate and create a lot of threats and violence to civilians, but also a lot of counterterrorism operations that add to the threats to civilians. And so it's very important that on all sides of the conflict, everybody's trying to behave as much as they can and do as much as they can practically to reduce the harm that they may cause.
Well then, this is the Paris Peace Forum. This is but the first edition. There will be others. This is something that is going to last over time. And what are your hopes and expectations toward this forum?
Well, I would say for us it's a really interesting forum to be visible as a civil society organization together with governments and institutions. But I would say for me it would be really meaningful if by the end of the forum, fortunately this year or maybe the following year, you can have concrete outcomes, maybe a document, maybe a declaration to which organizations which like us are selected as project leaders we can contribute to, and we can see that there are going to be potential actions follow it. So the political momentum created by the forum is great. It's really great. I think it's a very important symbol. Having said that, I really would like to see a number of steps being taken at the political level, practical level after the forum. So that is not just 3 days in the year, but it's the start of a whole process.
Yeah, so the project today is the launch of a new Geneva Call Deed of Commitment on protecting the medical mission and medical care. Geneva Call is a Swiss organization, NGO, dedicated to engaging what we call armed non-state actors, so armed groups active in non-international armed conflict, for them to better respect international humanitarian law. So we have developed new tools, treaty-like documents for them to concretely commit to specific humanitarian norms. So historically, Geneva Call started with a project on the ban of anti-personal mines, then on protection of children and protection of education, then on sexual-based violence and the prohibition of sexual violence. And we are here in Paris these 3 days in order to launch our new deed of commitment in order to engage armed non-state actors on the protection of medical care and medical mission.
So this is a project in partnership with Action Against Hunger, the FAO and WFP, to break the cycle between hunger and conflict. What prompted this project is the urgency of famine, man-made famine in context of conflict. We know that in areas of conflict where agriculture is often the main livelihood of the population, farmers are deprived of their livelihoods because of conflict, and it furthers them into famine or into extreme hunger. We also know that conflict often destroys livelihoods and also bring them into situations of hunger. And we really are calling on states and civil society to mobilize around the Security Council Resolution 2417 to end and break this cycle between hunger and conflict, where hunger fuels conflict and violence and conflicts actually worsen the situation of hunger for these populations.
As you are familiar, everybody talks about migration today. It has become a major topic, but the situation of migrants remains extraordinarily concerning. Situations of violence against migrants are everywhere, from countries of origin to country of destination, and we find it difficult to see immediate foreseeable outcome when it comes to influencing migration policies. So our choice has been to focus on violence, harmful situations, because we believe few people will be against the idea of trying to make migration processes less harmful. This is our ambition. How do we do that? We try to shed light to make violence against migrants visible through documentation of situations of violence, and then to mobilize actors, and this can be public actors, private actors, municipalities, trade unions, whoever is in a position to provide relief and improve the conditions of migrants. Any of these actors are relevant to do so. So it's a project-based approach in order to reduce the violence against migrants, while other initiatives are focusing on migration policies, such as the Global Compact on Migration, for example. So that's the core element of the project that we have initiated with a group of experts, Brussels-based, from trade unions, European Commission directors, representative of member states, human rights organizations, humanitarian organizations, academics. All these people gathered a number of times in order to conceive this project that now needs here in the Paris Peace Forum to find partners and donors in order to really kickstart.
Paty Chapuis, vous représentez ici Handicap International. Alors, vous n'êtes pas porteur de projet, donc vous n'avez pas un stand ici, mais vous êtes ici pour une raison qui est bien particulière. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous l'expliquer?
Alors, effectivement, nous sommes ici pour une raison bien particulière. On est ici parce qu'on commémore le 100e anniversaire de la Première Guerre mondiale et parce que depuis 100 ans, nous constatons que les règles et les moyens de guerre ont évolué. La guerre se déroule majoritairement dans les villes et les civils sont depuis 100 ans devenus progressivement les principales victimes des conflits armés. On estimait, selon les chiffres des historiens, que les civils représentaient 40% des victimes des conflits pendant la Première Guerre mondiale, ce qui était déjà énorme. Ce pourcentage est passé à plus de 70% pendant la Seconde Guerre mondiale. Et aujourd'hui, selon nos chiffres, plus de 90% des victimes des bombardements en zone peuplée sont des civils. Donc aujourd'hui, on est là pour dire stop. C'est aussi simple que ça. Handicap International a une expertise de terrain que nous venons à apporter ici au plus proche des décideurs politiques, des diplomates, des journalistes, et nous apportons aussi dans notre bagage des solutions. Nous militons pour un processus diplomatique qui est actuellement en cours, porté par 12 États, qui travaille actuellement à une déclaration politique visant à mettre fin à l'utilisation d'armes explosives en zone peuplée. Donc 100 ans après la Première Guerre mondiale, comment, de façon collective, intelligente, ici dans le cadre de ce forum-là, société civile, ONG, diplomates, journalistes, parfois chefs d'État, nous pouvons discuter de la modification des pratiques et des politiques de guerre qui aujourd'hui sont barbares et impactent majoritairement des civils.
I think that the interesting part of the current forum is that it's really bringing different worlds together. I mean, we have people that are working in new technologies, working on the legislation on the internet, next to traditional development organizations, humanitarian organizations, right-based organizations, and bringing these people, I think, together in and trying to bring them not only together but also with head of states and people from multilateral organizations, I think can create a dynamic which could really build bridges between the different fields, and I think that a more comprehensive approach for peace would include indeed development, new technologies, but also human rights as a rights-based approach. So I think that bringing these different groups together, I think would be a key issue that the Paris Peace Forum could bring.
The Paris Peace Forum is quite unique because it hasn't just tackled one area of what peace building means. It's looking at the economy, it's looking at the environment, it's looking at security, and all of those are actually connected, and this is one of the few events that I've seen that connects the dots between why environmental harm is going to create political and refugee harm, is going to create all these other tensions, and how this concept is all interconnected. I've seen people from the tech company like ourselves. I've also seen people from NGOs coming from all over the world and policy sectors. We need a multi-sector approach. All of our sectors should do what they do best together, and that's when you get impact.
Well, I would hope that this continues, a space for dialogue where different actors can come together and more civil society inputs can be taken into consideration on important global topics. Whether it's the environment, whether it's violence in our cities, whether it is sustainable living. And governments need to open up their channels to hear these inputs, implement these inputs, as well as continue to create a space for these inputs to continue to trickle in.
I think it's fabulous to bring together groups that really are looking at global governance, that have new ideas, that have new innovations. I would hope as they go along from one year to the next that these conversations will be a little bit more curated, a little bit more directed, and that there would actually be collaborations that come out of it, because we won't get anywhere if we don't act together.
So about this forum, this first edition is, I think globally in this kind of events we are promoting citizens' participation and also questioning what are the role of the citizens in global processes. So it is very interesting in this kind of forum because you have both public entities, private one, you just have Facebook over here. So it's very interesting also to see the diversity of the actors gathered on a topic together. And for us it's very interesting to understand the different point of view, the different expectation, and how they will react with the citizens' views. So basically what we are expecting from this event is making connection. At the moment we are preparing a debate on the internet governance. And we are talking, this morning I was talking with someone from China, so it was very interesting to see what are the stakes according to him regarding internet. And then I was talking to someone from Greece, which has different point of view of what should be the stakes and the discussion. So it's very interesting for us to feed ourselves, to ask the right questions to the citizens. So it's like having an overview of the different positions from private, public, but also diversity of countries and people that are at the moment here. So yeah, I think this is what we are looking at.
Well, for this first step in this forum, the idea is to spread the idea, to exchange with other people, other organizations, get to know their organizations, and to make know our projects, and to make connections and alliances if it's possible.
Us, this forum very prestigious for us, so we can learn each other from many countries. So we can use their experience and put in our experience in Indonesia as a civil society organization.
Well, I would say for us it's a really interesting forum to be visible as a civil society organization together with governments and institutions. But I would say for me it would be really meaningful if by the end of the forum, fortunately this year or maybe the following year, you can have concrete outcomes, maybe a document, maybe a declaration to which organizations which like us are selected as project leaders we can contribute to, and we can see that there are going to be potential actions followed. So the political momentum created by the forum is great. It's really great. I think it's a very important symbol. Having said that, I really would like to see a number of steps being taken at the political level, practical level after the forum. So that is not just 3 days in the year, but it's the start of a whole process.
Paris Peace Forum gave us the opportunity to share ideas with other participants, identify challenges that we have from different fields, and also at the same time identify solutions for each of them. So far I have managed to meet many other participants. I've heard also their presentation, and everything looks very interesting. But yet we're trying to reach to as many people as possible, to as many other organizations as possible, to make cooperation with other youth groups that are here present, so we can raise awareness on our challenges. It is not only the challenge of nuclear weapons that we should promote out there, but maybe also other challenges that we didn't know. And this is the point. This should be the objective of young people nowadays. We should raise awareness on all the challenges that the world is facing.
My expectation is that we as young people, we get access to a platform where we can make our voices heard, our project known, and our concerns heard. We hope to engage with leaders. We hope to meet partners, and we also hope to enlarge our networks of friends, to share experiences, best practices, and opportunities.
It's a fabulous opportunity to meet some NGOs that can be interested by our project. Why? Because everybody knows that there is a link between environment and peace. A lot of war, a lot of refugees come at the beginning from a problem of environment. So if we want peace, we need to protect environment. So that's why we can see that in here at the Paris Peace Forum, we have a lot of NGOs specialized in peace, which are very interested by our project. So we meet some NGO and we speak about our project.
Our hopes is that decision makers, member states, but also civil society, NGOs, UN agencies, understand the gravity of the situation where we are witnesses of man-made catastrophes and we can't do anything. And they will take this opportunity to change that, to act now for it not to happen ever again. We hope that this forum will show the world, will raise the alarm, will give voice to those who don't necessarily have one or can actually reach out to the decision makers for them to act and break this cycle of hunger and conflict.
Clearly, for this Paris Peace Forum, it's certainly, for this edition certainly, which is the first one, is as the project is starting, is for us to help us identify, the relevant and meaningful stakeholders that should gather into that community I was referring to you before. I was referring to. So basically, for us, it's to it's a good opportunity for us to because states are present here, various organizations already working on missing are as well present. Any other contacts, big data companies are as well present. So for us, it's a good opportunity to try to connect with these people because it will, we hope, help for the rollout of the project over the next 4 years. And then, indeed, we hope that maybe for the next years, in 2 years, maybe we will be able already to show some results about it.
We are able to see that for this first edition, the organization based really this forum on a pragmatic approach, on concrete projects. So I hope that this forum will be able to be planned again in the following years in order to bring in this discussion on multilateralism and the importance of collaboration, notably to face the current conflict settings with very concrete projects and to give the place to the civil society to be able to promote concrete actions.
This forum is an opportunity for us and for many others to make their project visible and to trigger the interest of you and others so that projects that can make a difference start really thriving and living and developing. That means that they will exist next year and the year after and so on and so forth. For us, what I hope is that, of course, we will be there next year to show our progress. If it's not us, there will be others. But really, already it's an opportunity we have to be in Paris and to be in a position to make this project known. We hope we will be able to inform of the progress made in the coming years.
We are really honored to be here. We apply and didn't expect just in our first year of startup being selected to be on this forum. Our main hope is about networking. We already connect with a lot of interesting organizations here that we know we can partner with in a sense even of getting funds or partnerships to extend our portfolio of organizations that we can open the doors to bring our young people to their places. So that's one of the main hopes that we have here. And another one, there is like a competition going on 10 startups are going to be selected to receive a mentoring for like a year till the next Paris Peace Forum. Because we are brand new and we already proved that it works what we do. We already got 2 pilots and people already find jobs on climate change thanks to our startup. So we are willing, we hope we get that mentorship to be able, so we can have a kind of help to develop ourselves much better to the next year.
So we hope to show what we're doing and also to meet up with lots of other organisations that have an interest. And what we found is that there are a huge number of people here that are very interested in the issues that we're talking about, but also to try and understand some of the other projects that are here, so that we can just connect some of these projects together, because at the moment a lot of, especially in the area that we're working on election integrity, there are a lot of very good projects out there, but they very rarely are uniting and coordinating their efforts. And so what we want to try and do is meet with them and work together with them so that we can all have much greater influence and we amplify our voices together.
Now, one of the successful expectations that this forum has brought is a strong call for multilateralism. The world in which we live today is marred by many conflicts. Chancellor Merkel yesterday was reminding that Yemen is one of the situations which is one of the worst humanitarian situations in global history. It's not the only one. I could name conflict after conflicts which are creating issues for mothers, fathers, families and children. And we have an accountability as a global community to help. As WHO, we are present in over 150 countries. We have a presence in all countries affected by conflicts. We are doing our best so that those conflicts are not don't add to the plight of conflict, the plight of killer diseases. We do our best so that basic services, health services, are available to any citizens of those conflicts, and that any mother which is going to give birth to a child can do it in the most secure situations in health centers. And I could increase this list forever, because health is everywhere in our societies. And we want to support those countries and those people to have the better possible health. And we, as the World Health Organization, are there to ensure that health is supporting the larger good, which is living in peaceful societies.
Dans le cadre de ce forum, comme je viens de dire tout à l'heure, la gouvernance, on peut nous demander pourquoi est-ce que dans un cadre de forum de paix, nous sommes un projet de gouvernance, pourquoi nous y sommes. Il faut dire que la question de gouvernance, comme on le voit ici avec le projet PAGOF, c'est dans un esprit de co-création, donc le gouvernement et la société civile ensemble s'associent pour réaliser cette initiative. Donc ça crée moins de conflits, plus de confiance, et ça peut renforcer, je veux dire, la relation entre gouvernement et société civile. Donc dans cet esprit, ce forum va permettre de rencontrer aussi d'autres acteurs et bénéficier de l'expérience d'autres pays qui mettront en œuvre, je veux dire, cette politique de gouvernement ouvert, ou encore d'autres initiatives, parce que la politique de gouvernement ouvert, je veux dire, c'est une initiative large qui implique les questions de gouvernance, des questions de technologie, des questions de droits de citoyens. Alors, dans ce type de forum, on peut rencontrer plusieurs acteurs et ça peut donner des idées, ça peut donner, je vais dire, une nouvelle orientation des activités que nous menons.
Non, je m'inscris tout à fait dans ce qui a été dit. En effet, c'est une occasion de pouvoir échanger donc, avec d'autres partenaires, d'autres associations, de voir un petit peu les autres initiatives. Et comme le disait Julien, de pouvoir échanger. On discutait avec quelqu'un qui travaille plus sur l'appui au Parlement et ça nous a donné des idées, notamment sur des actions qu'on pourrait mener dans le cadre de notre projet. Donc c'est l'occasion de discuter, de découvrir et d'échanger, et puis même de faire connaître ce que nous on peut faire dans le terme du gouvernement ouvert, qui sont parfois des notions un peu vagues et pas forcément connues par tout le monde.
First of all, we are very glad that our project was selected for the forum. It was a big opportunity in terms of visibility, in terms of networking with the other institutions working on similar issues. The expectation that we can use a future edition of the forum, for example, to share. We will be ready to use the following edition of the forum to share the result of this program, because the program just started, like the Peace Forum, and we will be happy to next year launch the report during the Peace Forum, or keep participating and keep getting input from the participants on the forum that are working on similar topics.
Well, the expectation is to meet the maximum of people as simple citizens, students, and high profiles. Like we met a lot of diplomats from different regions of the world, and mainly from Africa. And so it was really good to meet these persons, to explain to them the treaty, to encourage them to sign and ratify the treaty. Some of these countries have their process of ratification is engaged actually. So it was really good to have these private conversations in these peace forums. Also, it's really good to meet some other people who work, for example, in environment, because like that we can put them aware about our project, and we make some connections like, okay, we want to protect the environment, which is really super good, and we want also to protect the environment because we know that nuclear weapons, detonation of nuclear weapons can happen by a nuclear war, obviously, but also by accidents, and this will have an immediate effect of the global system, of the global environment. So some people begin to think about that, and we have a lot of connection this last 2 days on our topic and with different kind of persons.
Okay. I mean, I think it's an unprecedented place where we can actually bring different perspectives and actually have an honest dialogue about the problems of the world today. We heard from Chancellor Merkel, from President Macron, from the UN Secretary General about diagnosis of the difficulty that we face today. So I think if we look in the world today, there's the Munich Security Conferences for security people. You have the Davos for the business community. But you don't have such a place where everybody comes together, whether it's the military, whether it's the NGOs, whether it's the institutions like the World Bank or like the UN, to have a very solid, honest discussion. So to the extent to which we can find creative solutions to these problems, we expect to institutionalize this as a venue for integration of different solutions to the world's problems today.
Mr. Marlier?
Yes, I mean, we have to admit there is a legitimacy crisis of the multilateral system. It affects the United Nations. The Paris Peace Forums gives us the opportunity to connect with different stakeholders and more importantly the people of France and the people of the world. And we want to show them what we do is in the service and contributes to advancing the welfare, the security. So this event provides a unique opportunity for us to talk to innovators, leaders, civil society leaders, who, to be honest, we don't see enough, especially at our headquarters.
Well, I am very optimistic. This is a great first step. President Emmanuel Macron has said that this is the first one, that it should be implemented each year. So I think that civil society as well as nation states represented in this forum is the ideal relationship. We cannot do it by yourselves only, civil society. We need to work together with nation states. And on the other hand, nation states cannot do things alone. We should work for the human community, for the human sovereignty.
Eh bien, la particularité de cette première édition, d'ailleurs que l'on salue, il faut dire que cette première édition se passe très bien. Il faut dire que le format qui a été choisi est excellent. Plus il y aura d'espace de discussion entre société civile, décideurs politiques, journalistes, mieux cela sera. Les mettre ensemble et avoir des discussions à bâton rompu dans des espaces de discussion, c'est ce qui pourra potentiellement faire avancer les choses. Donc cette première édition, elle est particulière parce qu'elle est symbolique. On est 100 ans après la Première Guerre mondiale et nous arrivons avec un constat. Depuis 100 ans, les victimes, ce sont les civils. Donc pour bâtir la paix de demain, nous attendons de la France une prise de position forte, concrète, tangible, aller au-delà des discours et que la France s'engage dans le processus diplomatique actuel contre les bombardements de civils. Et nous avons des raisons d'espérer, parce que pendant la campagne présidentielle, Emmanuel Macron avait répondu à notre questionnaire et s'était montré favorable à soutenir l'appel du secrétaire général visant à aboutir à une déclaration politique contre les bombardements de civils. Donc aujourd'hui nous sommes là pour 2 raisons. La première c'est informer les citoyens, comme les journalistes, nos collègues des autres ONG, avec des interviews dans les médias, avec le partage de nos travaux de recherche sur le terrain, où sont les victimes, quelles sont les victimes aujourd'hui, et quelles sont les conséquences de long terme des armes explosives en zone peuplée. Et au-delà du domaine de l'information, nous sommes là pour convaincre. Discuter avec des décideurs politiques, des diplomates. Aujourd'hui même, ce matin, nous avons organisé une session sur notre campagne avec l'ambassadeur du Mozambique en France, le cofondateur d'Handicap International et une députée de la majorité présidentielle, tous partageant un constat commun que la situation actuelle des civils ne peut plus continuer et que pour bâtir la paix de demain, et c'est bien cela dont il s'agit ici, nous devons avoir un engagement tangible, comme je le disais, au-delà du discours, et signer cette déclaration politique. Et ça commence ici à Paris avec l'engagement de la France.
The hope is that we've seen a recommitment to multilateralism and the idea that our problems can be served with words instead of with bullets. The expectation is that continues and that this isn't just for show and isn't just as a sort of piece of razzmatazz, and that it leads to substantive agenda which needs to involve, politicians making real sacrifices, not the easy stuff like hosting a conference, but the hard stuff like compromising on their agendas so that we can have a peaceful world, and so we actually do deal with issues like climate change. We don't just talk about them.
And if I can jump in here with a third factor that we have found here, what we have found are all these voices that are not heard, all these voices that are separately working, but not in one specific place. And this is precisely what Together First is providing, is one platform, a digital platform where we are trying to put together all these wonderful initiatives that come from the citizens that tackle the needs that the citizens and the society has.
So I guess we're inspired by the different projects and ideas being presented here at Paris Peace Forum. There are some really fantastic ones out there that we'd love to highlight and to amplify through our campaign. And so the basic principle of Together First is to find the most promising ideas to improve global governance and to help them to make those ideas a reality. So next year, throughout 2019, we're going to be putting together this priority list for the international community based on which ideas are the most promising and the most realistic.
With a specific objective, yes, global governance, but the global governance that can tackle the global catastrophic risks. So this is our main target, and this is difficult to define, of course, but this is why we are on a space where we can understand a variety of different proposals that can tackle and convey these problems.
If you're interested in improving global decision making and being a part of that conversation, please find us online, www.together1st.org. You'll find all of our work plans and the ideas that we have are documented there.
And one more thing, we are, in addition of being a web platform, we are also designing specific strategies for implementing their ideas. This is what is gonna, the difference of being just a website, but we are a strategic organization.
We have made a very clear commitment to involve civil society in most of our projects. It's actually, we work for the people. I mean, of course, our clients are governments, but ultimately, the ultimate beneficiaries of what we do are individuals, people, and communities. So, to give you two really quick examples, we have revised our safeguards framework in the World Bank, and there's been an extensive consultation process in more than 30 countries, I believe. Similarly, all the projects have an indicator for civil society involvement, so we actually have to have consultations in all the strategy documents. So I'm very much aware that, speaking personally now, that as an institution, we can seem aloof, we can seem distant, but our projects are very much on the ground. We are doubling the amount of money we are investing in fragile states. So trying to make a difference as much as possible in the places that are suffering the most today.
And as far as the UN is concerned?
Well, I have to tell you about the Secretary General Initiative for Peacekeeping and the Declaration of Shared Commitments on Effective Partnerships in Peacekeeping. Sounds really technocratic, but this is actually a really significant development. On the side of the General Assembly high-level week this year in September, 150 member states endorsed this declaration. The Declaration of Shared Commitments, for the first time, puts people at the center of the UN engagement in peacekeeping and peace operations. Talking about, we're shifting our approach from, we're trying to balance our approach between our traditional focus on supporting member states with a renewed focus on engaging civil society organizations and people. And it's really a strategic priority for the Secretary General for his mandate. The proof is we are shifting more funding towards NGOs in countries hosting UN peace operations or colleagues in Mali, Central African Republic, the DRC, Somalia. Increasingly provide funding to local civil society organizations and partner with them to help the UN implement their mandates.
Well, it's in the most difficult context. In all contexts, I should say, governments are trying their best to do what they can in the areas where they have an access, but they don't have access to everywhere. We as international organizations, non-governmental organizations, Red Cross movement organizations, we have, in most cases, access to those areas, access to those people, and we are trying our best to provide the services they need. And that in itself, the picture that you see here of bringing a mobile clinic, those people which otherwise don't have the simple opportunity to be taken care of for their primary healthcare needs, it's a ray of hope in otherwise sometimes a gloomy picture. And this ray of hope is something that we should all be proud about.
As a conclusion, I shall give you a Chinese proverb: better light up a small candle than curse the darkness.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Okay, the answer is essential. It is essential to participate global civil society in all areas: ethics, politics, law, technology, whatever. We should be together as civil society and convince nation states that they should work with us. Otherwise, the things are not going to be solved.
We absolutely need a bottom-up approach. We need the voice of civil society. It tempers all of politics and all of governance when it goes in the wrong direction. We need the voice of people being more proactive, and we need infrastructure to embolden that voice and actually use that voice in an effective way. Some of that is going to be online. Some of that we see used and misappropriated, but it's now more than ever important that that voice is not lost.
Governments represent the people. That is their purpose. It's an organizational system. And governments that don't represent the people, which is civil society, have no moral authority, in my opinion. And the problems that we're seeing come from the fact that civil society is not robust enough, is not resilient enough, and that's what we need in order to have a world of peace and calm.
I think citizens play a very important role in most democratic countries. You are the power, which we've often forgotten. Your vote counts, and after voting, make sure that your government is held accountable to its promises. At the end of the day, they work for you. So I do believe that civil society needs to continue to harness this power, make your thoughts known, and make the governments work for you.
On the opposite, it's not, the civil society is not in the past, it's in the future. This is the way we see it. We see see a transformation and a switch of the power that is not only going to be in some hands, and the decision it cannot stay only in a few minds, but it needs to be switched and to a global to the global needs, to the civil society.
I mean, no, I do agree with that entirely. I think what we see all around us is the power of civil society. I think the energy of this conference hasn't come from the world leaders who left after the first day. The energy of this conference has come from the public and the booths and the meet-up spaces and the civil society and public energy that's in this room.
It's unimaginable to think of a major reform initiative now that would leave civil society out, because this is beyond the catastrophic risks we face are beyond the scope of governments to deal with on their own. We need business, we need civil society, we need global citizens to be a part of the solution. It's actually the only feasible practical way to solve things like climate change, which we're up against. That's too big for any one constituency. That's got to be a combined effort, and global civil society is a major part of that solution.
Well, we have found several solutions for this, and each one of these solutions are a contribution to solve these problems, right? So we call it that we have shared problems, shared solutions. That's our vision, and we are also a middle ground between these citizens, the voice of these citizens, these amazing initiatives of these citizens. We're including the most promising initiatives in order to transfer and to make a voice valid towards those that are taking the decisions now. So it's a pretty immediate initiative that we are designing in order to make the changes happening pretty soon.
I think it's incremental. I think that there. I mean, of course, there are countries where there is very limited or no space for citizens to voice their opinion or to bring certain topics to the attention. But I think that citizens should always, at least try to take this space as much as possible. And I think that also the last 50 years have shown that also in very authoritarian regimes, citizens can try to provoke a reaction or try to claim a certain space, and this can be dangerous. This can be difficult, and I think that their CSOs and international organizations can come in to support these citizens in claiming their voice and claiming this space for themselves. I think to empower these voices, to strategize with them on how these voices can best be where these voices best can be heard. It's essential. We are actors of the civil society. MDM, NRC, actors, partners of this initiative are coming from the civil society mainly. So we are already part of that. What you are describing is a reality. This hardship endured by migrants all along their journey is a reality we need to deal with, we need to fight against, and civil society has a key role. When I was telling you that trade unions or companies could have a say, of course, humanitarian organizations, community-based organizations have probably in general are the most in touch with migrants, so they are in the best position to identify what are the concrete actions that can be taken in order to address the most disturbing causes of violence that migrants are experimenting today. So civil society is a central element of the response. We are part of it. We need to find more allies, and hopefully with your support we will find these.
Well, people who say that civil society are dead or are useless obviously are really opposite to the civil society, to the way, because civil society is the speech and the voice of the citizens. and we have a lot of powers. We are followed by 500 NGO organizations across the world, ICANNs, in 100 countries. So we are big power organizations, and obviously we need the help of states because just us NGO can do nothing in the UNs. But because we work a lot on these problems, nuclear weapons, more than 122 states follow us and decide to work on the nuclear weapon ban treaty. So we are really a new force. NGOs are the force who can really help and engage, and I would say to save a lot of humanities, environments and actions, and also we are the voice to put away some media about what are the problems, where are the problems, what is the reality, why France, United States and Russia are friends when they speak about nuclear weapons, and they say that they are against together, and with China and UK, for example, and why it's not normal to say that, why it's not normal to say that they want our own security with nuclear weapons, and it's a danger for all over the world. So obviously NGO is a great power and have a lot of voice, and it's a necessity in our world, and maybe more in the 21st century.
First of all, I would like just to mention something about your point when it comes to the rule of law. Actually, we have a very good example here with the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, because from 1945 till 1996, when this treaty was opened for signature, there were 2,000 nuclear tests. Meanwhile, the moment that this treaty was opened for signature, till today, there are only 10 nuclear tests. So make the comparison. So this is the rule of law. The verification regime that the CTBT has established has managed to make sure that no country breaches the treaty and gets not detected. When it comes to civil society, yes, it's totally true. It's totally true, and I'm very sure that most of the people believe that everything is in the hand of the politician, and that's true. Everything is in the hand of the politician. But I also believe that we should reach to the politicians. Maybe we should make them know that what are things that really worries us, or what are our concerns, because also politicians, they have their own agenda. But what if we can bring our challenges to their agenda? I think this is something that we should explore, and this is something we should do.
I think the importance is to be mobilized and raise the voice. I think we can put pressure on states. I think states will listen to the global mobilization of citizens. I think citizens have this power, and they need to take it again to put pressure on states for them to stop using hunger as a weapon of war, for example, for them to allow access of the population to humanitarian assistance, for them to stop this cycle of starvation. I think citizens of the world have this power. They need to reclaim it. This is the forum should allow them to reclaim this power, and again to call on states to be accountable and to act on what they can do and take the right decisions for the populations who need them.
On va dire que la société civile n'a jamais été aussi importante qu'aujourd'hui. Comme vous l'avez rappelé, les civils sont devenus les principales victimes des conflits armés. Et notre expérience nous prouve, de par nos engagements passés, nous avançons sur deux jambes. Une jambe est sur le terrain, relaie la voix des victimes, une autre est dans les forums internationaux où se côtoient des décideurs politiques. Notre expérience passée nous a montré que lorsque nous nous sommes engagés pour un traité d'interdiction des mines antipersonnelles il y a plus de 30 ans, on nous a traités d'utopistes, et État après État, citoyen après citoyen, pétition après pétition, nous avons abouti il y a plus de 20 ans à un traité d'interdiction des mines antipersonnelles. Le premier traité d'interdiction d'une arme conventionnelle dont la société civile était à l'initiative. Et ça a un impact très concret sur le terrain. 20 ans après le traité contre les mines antipersonnelles, c'est 20 fois moins de victimes de mines antipersonnelles. Et ça, ce progrès-là, il n'est pas quantifiable, et il est à mettre au seul crédit, en tout cas dans l'initiative de la société civile. 10 ans après, rebelote. On a voulu interdire les armes à sous-munitions. Ça nous a pris des années pour les interdire, ces armes barbares. On a convaincu État après État, et aujourd'hui, voilà, même les États qui n'ont pas signé, les États réfractaires, ceux que l'on n'arrive pas à convaincre, ceux qui ont les pratiques les plus barbares, les plus atroces, même ceux qu'on n'est pas arrivé à convaincre de signer ces traités dont je vous ai parlé, ont dû modifier leur politique, leur pratique de guerre. Pourquoi ? Parce que par exemple, dans un cas, le marché des mines s'est tari, donc les États-Unis, la Russie ont été obligés d'adapter leur politique et leurs pratiques. Dans d'autres cas, la pression de la société civile était trop forte, la mobilisation citoyenne a été trop forte, donc c'est politiquement devenu trop coûteux de bombarder des civils. Donc on ne cherche pas à convaincre tout le monde en même temps. Nous sommes sur une bataille de long terme et ça, c'est l'engagement même, la nature même de la société civile. C'est pour ça qu'on a besoin de votre engagement. Et si vous pensez que signer une pétition, ça n'a plus de signification politique, vous vous trompez. Parce que quand il y a 20 ans, on avait notre pétition et qu'on a réuni 500 000 signataires, encore aujourd'hui, les diplomates nous en parlent parce que nous sommes arrivés avec les signatures imprimées sur des bottins pendant les négociations internationales. Ça, c'est de l'appui citoyen, ça marche. Et peu importe le temps que ça prendra, on finit toujours par être victorieux.
In our context in Indonesia, there is a phenomenon of growing of intolerance and radicalism, and for me it is also a big problem in many countries, Islamophobia, immigration, and etc. etc. So we can learn from this forum to work together as international communities, and we can solve the problem in our country, particularly in our area of program.
Well, for us, it's definitely really important because we are promoting a culture of peace and a culture of forgiveness and reconciliation, and the idea is to spread it in Colombia and around the world. So the idea is it's a bottom-up project, so definitely important to start from the communities and from every step, every spot of the communities, of the population, to get to spread the idea of a culture of peace and a culture of, to face the culture of war, of conflict that is increasingly important these days. And so to face these problematics of mistrust and of violence in the everyday life.
That's a very good question. First of all, I think that in the region I'm coming from, we are witnessing another new form of citizens' engagement, and we call it social movement. Young people claiming their rights. They can no longer wait something to be done for them. They have just raised the awareness that they have to fix themselves their problems. So development is not something people should do for us. We should develop ourselves. And for that to happen, civilian society is very key. And so reason why we have to fight. But the problem there is that the civilian society as we know it today is now playing its role properly. They are in workshops, writing fund proposals and whatever. And so the social movement is, I would say, the best alternative.
Civil society is crucial. It is crucial in environmental law first because they are often at the initiative of proposal draft treaty, as in our case. It's an initiative from the civil society. But it's also crucial in the implementation of this treaty because after states have signed a treaty, we need citizens to have a role of VG, to keep under control the state, to check that states apply effectively the treaty. And that's why in our Global Pact we have a special article, you can find it in our website, a special article which recognizes for the first time in the history of environmental law, of international environmental law, the role of civil society, that means the role of non-state actors, companies, NGO, and most of them citizens.
I think, you have a lot of policy speeches
everyone says we need the citizens, nothing can be done without the citizens, which is agreed, but one thing is to have the right tools and the right methods. So I think at the moment we are challenging this is how do we connect with citizens? There is a shared view about, yes, we need to build now policies with the citizens, but how do we do that? And I think that's the question of the moment is how do we do that? And there is an emergency to do, because when you see the populism that place themselves as ambassador of the people point of view, or polls, we need to find the right way to reconnect with citizens. Otherwise, any policy or any party that will declare himself as an ambassador of the citizens' views, it could be very dangerous for our democracy. So I think there is a real stake for democracies in the next decades to reconnect with the citizens.
In today's world, governments are still important, but increasingly with the internet, with globalization, the ability of governments to protect their people, to manage their societies is diminished. And so civil society has to help to fill that gap. And in many of the challenges that we face now, they're global challenges, they're not national challenges, and so we need global solutions. And so that means we need organizations that transcend the national and transcend just the interests of specific governments and actually help to find more sustainable solutions. But also, the way democracy works today means that governments themselves don't think strategic or think long term. They think about the next 24-hour news cycle. And so NGOs play a very important role in making sure that governments are concerned about key issues that matter to people, not just about what's coming in the newspapers tomorrow.
For us, within the scope of the project, we aim very much at having as well families, family organizations that are part of the project, and is for us one of the key stakeholders that needs to be taken. So for us as well, civil society organization working on this issue are key for us to understand not only the scope, what's at stake, help us identify what are the good practices, of course, but it helps us as well make the connection and make sure that we are still relevant about the response we're coming up, that they are relevant and meaningful on the ground. So that's for us the main aim. And again, we try really to as well call for states, on the states' responsibilities towards missing persons and solving and preventing missing cases. But and for us, we will certainly bet on the fact that although you might have some increase in violence, etc., we are still betting on the complementarity of actors in order to make the progress move. Because again, there is not one country in the world where you don't have a missing persons element in civil society. So for us, it's not really about us versus them or that type of element. For us, it's basically we need to improve wherever they are, and whatever the causes of the persons going missing, we need to take help on that.
Yeah, obviously, as you can imagine, I'm very convinced that there is a critical role for civil society. First, as civic, what we do is precisely work at the intersection of civilian population, humanitarian actors, and militaries and government to find practical solutions. And there are things that you can do as a civil society organization that government cannot really initiate themselves, or that humanitarian NGOs cannot really achieve, or communities obviously sometimes are further away from political circles. So it's really interesting I think for everyone to be able to tap into the potential of civil society organizations that have this agility, flexibility to go from one circle to the other, to talk to the Ukrainians, the Ukrainian population in Donbass on the contact line, while at the same time raising the question of Ukraine in the halls of power. So this connection, this and connecting dimension is a really, really important one. And then I think it was mentioned just earlier in a talk about old and new diplomacy. In these times where, let's say, some government are taking a more mighty approach to international relations and less oriented towards diplomacy, there is a real role for civil society to kind of compensate or to kind of provide, provide some political insights into foreign relations and into war and peace, basically.
I think it's absolutely key, and I will also give you an example. In one of the pilots, the city of Kyushu, it's really a great example on how civil society can really help to shape the policy and to improve the policy. The city of Kyushu had a big issue in terms of pollution 50 years ago, and there was a strong social movement, in particular from the wife of the workers that were getting sick because of this high level of pollution. So the city of Kyushu, thanks to this social movement, managed to overcome the problem of pollution, and now the main strengths of the city are the environmental SDGs. So this is just one example on how civil society can really help shaping the policy, and it's really key. We saw for this reason, every time in this project, every time we go to a mission, we always organize meetings, workshops, and the civil society is always part of this discussion, because again, we really think that without the civil society engagement, it's not possible to develop and implement the policy and achieve results.
Je pense que ce projet démontre clairement le contraire de cette, je vais dire, pensée, parce que ce projet demande à ce que le gouvernement et société civile puissent s'associer pour travailler main dans la main et avancer dans la même direction. Alors, à travers ce projet, je dirais qu'il y a la place de la société civile. Sans la société civile, on ne parle pas de co-création, on ne parle pas de gouvernement ouvert. Donc la société civile a un rôle à jouer pour jouer, je ne dirais pas le contrepoids, mais pour faire en sorte que le gouvernement puisse réaliser ses engagements, parce que la société civile peut faire le suivi, la société civile peut faire le plaidoyer, la société civile peut engager le gouvernement sur ses engagements, si j'ai au risque de me répéter, mais je pense que la société civile a son rôle, a sa part de mission à réaliser.
Madame Rivard, autre chose
tout à fait. En effet, c'est vraiment le cadre de ce projet, de vraiment faire que le gouvernement et la société civile travaillent ensemble, co-construisent, que la société civile justement a un rôle à jouer dans l'élaboration, la définition, le suivi des politiques publiques, notamment pour veiller à ce qu'il n'y ait pas de discrimination ou de veiller à ce qu'il y ait une cohésion sociale qui soit respectée. Donc c'est vraiment l'un du cœur de notre projet et qui montre qu'en effet, des bonnes politiques publiques, un État transparent, efficace, il y a besoin de différentes composantes de la société civile, citoyens, syndicats, les médias également, qui travaillent conjointement avec les gouvernements.
Well, I think that there is a lot of hope out there, and our work is a living proof that responsible work, that professional work can actually go hand to hand with the government work to affect change. And these statistical efforts are actually changing things in our country, and we want to take that experience to other jurisdictions, of course.
I think we play a huge role in the world. People who believe that civil society is dead, I totally and not agree with that at all. I've been advocating as a civil society like for years, working in the third sector for more than 8 years. I am a lawyer advocating for climate change and human rights. So I do believe civil society it's essential, because we raise the voices, it's needed. So the governments can hear, private sectors can hear. If we do not exist, the movement is not complete, because we are the ones living the daily basis and understanding the main needs in our lives. So once we understand the needs and we find ways to help it, like without civil society developing all these jobs that we can see, more than 100 different organizations working on here, is not complete. And even with civil society working hard every single day to tackle so many issues, it's still already we're so far away to achieve some kind of results. Can you imagine without it? So I do believe civil society is one of the main roles in order, for example, in my case, to tackle climate change. If we're not there every single day in front of the government, putting that pressure, explaining how important it is, all the movements are going on towards this and everything else, probably governments are not going to make the next step faster than we'd like to. So our pressure is important because we are the main voices to make this movement happen.
Civil society is more and more relevant, and in order to make sure that we can develop concrete projects with this neutral and impartial as well approach to promote new solutions and to be able to deliver concrete activities not politicized towards the civilian population, if we take the example of armed conflict and the instability that we can see to date.